Welcome everyone to the first edition of the SDG Action Conclave 2020. In today's session, we're going to be focusing on Sustainable Development Goal 5, which is gender equality. That's achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls. So, before we begin this discussion, let me tell you a little bit about Youth Forum. Youth Forum is a project under Alexis Society, and our team majorly consists of inspired young students and professionals who are solely interested in creating positive social impact by conducting research on policy issues, writing thought provoking and insightful blogs, designing creative social campaigns, organizing life changing events, and interviewing leaders and change makers. So it's very aptly said that the youth are not only leaders of tomorrow, but also partners of today. So we at Youth Forum are a team of creative and encouraging individuals with a shared mission, and that's a mission to change the world. So, through this first edition of SDG Action Conclave, we wish to bring together the change makers and the leaders from all over the globe around under the Act for SDGs campaign week of the United Nations. So, this is certainly going to help us create an actionable agenda that will aid all in achieving the sustainable development goals through all the initiatives and more. So, right now, we all know that the world leaders are meeting virtually at the United Nations General Assembly to discuss issues and give a solution to the tough times. So, we are also trying to do our small bit by taking action and raising awareness and initiating a better direction ahead. So, the turning point of the planet and the people has to start somewhere, and that is right now. So, today we have with us two eminent personalities. One of them is Lakshmi Pratury ma'am, and she is the founder and CEO of Ink Talks. Her penchant for community building and technological innovation led her to found Ink Talks, which stands for Innovation and Knowledge. Ink is also a metaphor for building a platform where we write our future together. Ink is known for events like its flagship annual Ink conference and its programs like Ink Fellows, wherein stories of game changing innovations are curated to reach far and wide. As a speaker, Lakshmi ma'am addresses large corporates and leaders where she instills cutting edge insights in moonshot style of thinking to bring innovative business practices into the company. Ma'am speaks widely on the topic of storytelling, specifically the vital role that stories play in businesses and institution building. Her long experience in this area dates back to her time at Intel, where she harnessed the power of storytelling to help the IT giant transform from a chip company to a leader in the computing industry through programs like Intel Inside. She also talks passionately about redefining success in terms of breathtaking moments and not billions of dollars. Ma'am has a tremendous stage presence built over years of speaking at global conferences such as TED, DLD, and Wired, hosting over 10 major Inc. events across Asia, and acting in theater in the US. Prior to Inc., Lakshmi Ma'am spent over 2 decades in the US in leading roles in technology, that's Intel, venture capital, that's Global Catalyst Partners, and shaping initiatives for non-profit organizations like American India Foundation. She attended IIT, that's Indian Institute of Technology, Mumbai, and was a gold medalist in undergraduate mathematics. Having waded through domains like math, venture capital, and technology, where women are underrepresented, Lakshmi Ma'am is an ardent advocate of women at work. Among many awards and recognition she has been conferred on, Ma'am was listed in Forbes Women to Watch in Asia. Lakshmi Ma'am moved back to India to disseminate the holistic India story to the rest of the world. She is based in Bangalore and her portfolio can be found on her website, that's lakshmiprathuri.net. Now we have with us Mr. Kunal Mandal, who is the co-founder of Gyan Space, which is a gamification company which uses quizzes and other games as a tool for personal growth and people engagement. And he's also associated with citybytesindia.com, which is a travel portal which helps travelers discover and book inspiring city experiences provided by local experts. Currently, he is on a mission to teach curiosity as a life skill and to increase awareness about sustainability, and also to empower young Indians to be more than what they think they can be. So, now to take the discussion forward while trying to arrive at a solution today through this session on SDG 5, I would like to hand over the conduct to Mr. Mandal.
Thank you, Aarjoo, and welcome each and every one of you who is joining in and listening to today's session. I have a very, very special guest, and I'm deeply honored to have Ms. Lakshmi Pratury with me, the founder of Inktalk. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us.
Sure. And namaste to all of you.
Yes, namaste from us as well. And I believe all the audience who is joining in, they're looking forward to hear from you. So let me get the elephant out of the room first. You are the person who brought TED to India. And this was clearly a game changer for all of us. And you mentioned in one of your interviews, I think I was listening, that all journeys don't start with a moment. They start with a lot of things that have happened in the background. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the background or the story behind bringing TED to India?
Yeah. So since it's about story, so let me start with a story. This is a story of a person who goes to fix a ship. So basically, there's a huge ship that's sailing and it's marooned because there's something wrong with the ship and nobody knows what's wrong with the ship. They have their own experts and they call, and it's already been a week, and every day is costing them. And finally someone says, there is this little shop. There's a guy there who's supposed to be the expert in ships. So now that they have gone to all the major repair people, so they go to this guy. So he comes with his little toolbox, comes into the ship, and he goes straight to one place that not many people have gone to, and looks here, looks there, takes like a little wrench and does like this, and it's fixed. Ship starts. So they are like unbelievable, so they're like, my goodness, this guy is really, really good. And when they're all happy, like some small shop guy came here for like 2 minutes and did this, like fixed it very cheap also. So they say, okay, thank you very much. Can you send your bill? The guy says, sure. And a couple hours later, he sends the bill, and the bill says $10,000. And now the captain has fallen off the chair. It's like this little dinky shop, this guy who came for like 2 minutes exactly. And he's charging me $10,000, and he's really upset. And he goes to him and says, how could you, charge this? Now, mind you, all the experts they have invited, all etc., they've already spent $100,000 on this, that has not been fixed. And the loss is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars per day because the ship is not moving. But all that aside, he's very upset. So the guy who fixed the thing says very quietly that to actually, in my time there is actually $1, but to know exactly where to hit is $9,999. And I love this story because we always say, well, you were here for only 1 minute. How can it be $10,000? It's not a question of whether I fix something in 1 minute or 1 hour or whatever. It's the years of experience that I have that makes me valuable, that made that person valuable. So that story is a metaphor for me. For a lot of times people say that, wow, he just went there and got the deal, or he just wrote the exam and became a topper. We only see the result. They did this company went IPO, they made all this money. Look at this guy, he made $1 billion. Look at that woman, she became a CEO, whatever. It's as though that happened because of them being at the right place at the right time. But everything happens because of the wealth of information they have coming up till then, the amount of work they have put in. Yes, there is 10% of the cases, even in the most optimistic time, that you just are standing at the right place at the right time. But in my opinion, not just 90, but 99% of successes happen on the shoulders of a lot of hard work. So when somebody says that, we'll do it in a jiffy, or we'll do it in a moment, or I can get up here and tell this story in 2 minutes. It's because I've been doing this for the last 30 years, to know which story to tell when, or to pull what from where, and to make sense. It takes years. So when people come to me and say, hey, I want to do a storytelling workshop, I want to become a storyteller, or as a company, we want to become innovative, I always ask them, are you willing to give it the time? It'll take 10 years for you to be innovative. It'll take you a year or two of really hard work to be a great storyteller. It doesn't happen by a 2-hour workshop or a 10-minute sermon, So everything that's of value comes by hard work. And so when next time you see someone and say, look, they're a topper, or look, they got the job, or whatever, just look at how much work went into it. Maybe they figured out exactly who to talk to and what to say. I could bring TED to India because I had a relationship with Richard Saul Worman, who founded TED, and also with Chris Anderson, who took it over. For 10 years, 15 years, I've been going to TED since 93. So in 2008, when I went to Chris and said, hey, why don't we host TED in India? It didn't come out of that 1 minute of conversation. It came out of my 17 years of being part of that community, or 15 years of being part of that community, and that trust he has that if I take this, I will do it with the right intention and I'll do a good job. So that's the background of things don't happen in a moment. They happen because of someone really spent a lot of time thinking about the right thing to say at the right time and the right amount, etc., etc., etc.
Thank you so much for sharing the story. It's so insightful. And since you mentioned thinking, let me move into, that Ink Talks from there.
Yeah.
Because you went on to build Ink Talks, and if I'm not wrong, 2010 is when you did the first edition. And since then, it has given a platform to people to share their stories, and you gave people these voices that can make an impact. In one of your articles that I was reading, you mentioned that I have yet to know a successful entrepreneur who has not felt lonely, lost, and hopeless at some point. They stand where they are today because they kept moving forward. And being an entrepreneur, I can closely relate to it. So I wanted to ask you, I'm sure you must have had these moments when you were building Ink Talk as well. So, but you persevered and went on to grow. So so if I have to frame the question for you, one would be that how did you make ink the best brain spa there is? And what were some of the most difficult challenges or situations that you have had to encounter while building Ink Talk?
Yeah. It's, it's been 10 years now. We started in 2010, it's 2020, and it's been a hard and long journey. People only see the conference, people only see the talks that come out of it. But if you think of how much hard work that goes into it, to do anything, you need resources. And we have an amazing team. I mean, we have a dozen people with which we pull off something as huge as Ink. And at a fraction of the cost that most conferences do. But I would say that, and I'll tell you, what are the moments that make me say, we are crazy, let's go back to US and just get some part-time job. And this is madness, because it is madness what we're doing. And I will also tell you what makes me stay, So the first thing is when I started something, I said it's a 10-year journey. I didn't start this with a 1-year thing. But like all entrepreneurs, I thought we'll start this a year from now. Wow, things are going to just take off. And, in 10 years, we're going to be like a, $100 million company. I mean, it's sort of, that's how, but I knew that I'm going to be in it for 10, 20, 30 years. And I always said when I started that I am working toward Ink Conference 2099. I'm walking toward Ink 2099. And in that what the next 10 years are going to be. That's always the way I think. And all I knew is the end goal. The end goal is that it must help accelerate the journeys of game changers. Inc. came about because I love storytelling, but you can tell stories any which way, But my thing was, whenever there are game-changing ideas, especially in technology, in business, etc., a lot of them are not taken seriously till that becomes a trend. I mean, I was working on e-commerce in 1994. No one believed that somebody would buy things online, somebody would communicate online. We used to say this, that you could be sitting in any city and you could be talking to each other over Wi-Fi, and nobody knew what Wi-Fi was at that time. Internet was just coming home. I mean, it was not even at home. I mean, that's a time when there was no Google, and way before. I mean, Mark was probably in his primary school. There was no Facebook, basically, no thought of Facebook. Now, if you think about that, I mean, that's when Timothy Berners-Lee, before that, did World Wide Web, and these things were coming together. But at that time, if I had an e-commerce company in 94 or 95, which we actually, as part of Intel Capital, we did fund some people. If I said, hey, I want to do an e-commerce company, nobody would have believed me. And today, you take it for granted that you do everything online, right? So I think the biggest problem for us had to overcome is we had this long-term view of, we want to create innovative companies out of India. We want to support innovative people out of India. And to make that happen, you need to expose the game. You need to identify, first of all, who are some game changers, because you can only do this by creating a ripple effect. There is no way I can get 1 billion people to be leaders. It never works that way. So you need to find the small group of people who are game changers. And how do you create a community of them, for them, by them, and get them to accelerate their journeys? If it would have taken them 10 years to get somewhere, can we do that in 5 years? It would have taken 5 years, can we do it in a year? Can we open up our little black books, so to speak, our networking, to connect people in such a way that their journeys are accelerated? So that was the mission, accelerating the journeys of game changers. Now, to do this, first of all, you have to identify the game changers. You have to convince them to spend time with each other. And then you have to inspire them. The more accomplished you are, the more difficult it is to inspire them, because they have done most of the things in life. So you have to inspire them. You have to open up their imagination. No matter how much I know, there's a lot to learn. So you have to open up the imagination and then build the skill set and tell them, hey, you're great, you're doing this good job, but you don't know how to tell your story. So let me work with you to tell your story. Let me work with you to work with others, etc. And then define an action, and then make sure that action happens. So it's a long tail. It's a very long process. So, first year when we started, the euphoria of TED, we did TED India, and Inc. came out of that, and we had Inc. Talks, and TED was incredibly generous. For the first 3 years, we did Inc. Conference in association with TED. We launched over 500 TEDx's in India. So it was a great partnership to help each other initially. And then Inc. has been on its own. So the first set is to get people to understand that you need to take a long-term view. And while you're taking the long-term view, you have to spend the money now, as though you have that product already. And in India, we are very used to spending in a very iterative fashion. I'll spend 10 rupees and make 15 rupees and put the 5 rupees back, make it 20 rupees. That's how we think. We never think of, here is 1,000 rupees, take it and go build it. We don't talk like that. We just say, prove yourself first, and then I might support you. That's the way we are built here. And that's the way any economy in its building stage is built, and it's rightfully so. But innovation doesn't come if you think like that. It comes by allowing people to take huge chances and fail and iterate on it and being at it. We keep talking about Google, we keep talking about Facebook, but think about their founders. They have enough money to retire. Why do they come to work every day and still work at it, right? It's because it's not the money that drives them. It's the ability to move forward. Why are they taking such huge, bets? Why are they making such huge bets? I mean, when, Google said they wanted to buy YouTube and pay billions, and people said, you're crazy. But now everybody sees, yeah, that was right. But if they nickel and dimed and told the YouTube founders, I'll give you $10,000, that would have never happened, you know. So it's sort of really, really taking those big risks, open up the imagination. It's extremely difficult to communicate this to people. There is very few people who have the big picture, and we've been very lucky to find them over the last 10 years. But it's a long haul for people to understand why you need to do things with a certain quality, with a certain depth, with a certain integrity, to create a great experience. So that's the first thing, getting people to understand anything long term. It's not a quick buck thing, it's a long term thing. The second thing is that it's very difficult to face failure in India because people write you off very, very quickly. People don't give you the opportunity to, to come out of it. So we work with a lot of people, and when the failure comes, it's very hard on them. So to work with people, to create the emotional intelligence, emotional bond around great game changers, to keep things positive, is also very difficult. And the third thing is just the basic survival is difficult in India for something like what we are doing. And as I said, we've been incredibly, incredibly lucky to have the kind of inner circle members, investors, or in future makers that we have, who invest in us in the most unreasonable way, but it's very, very difficult. There are so many times, like every year when we do the conference, literally even 1 month before the conference, we are like, can we pull this off? Do we have the money to pay the hotel? Do we have the money to pay the video people? And of course, somebody always comes in and makes sure everything happens. But it's not easy, People in India follow trends, and so if I do one more, online something, people will come. But if I'm doing something completely different, the amount of support that comes is smaller. Instead of having, here is a huge thing, support. That's the one thing. And the second thing, I felt very lonely, and I say this to every entrepreneur, is that I think it's a good idea to start a company with a co-founder, with someone you really, really trust, someone who's with you no matter what, and someone who's got the financial wherewithal just as you do to, weather the tough times. So again, as I said, I have an amazing team, people who have stuck with us for 10 years from the beginning, for 6 years, 5 years. We've had a great team. So that way I'm very lucky to have had many co-founders. And yet I'm saying that it's to have that one person who has a financial risk in it as much as you do from the beginning. Someone with a complementary skill set is very important. Like if I did it all over again, I would have loved to get someone on board who's very good in finance and business development and knows the numbers and all these kinds of stuff. So I could keep to curating, and that person could have run the business. Me doing both has made it very difficult to progress at a pace I would like, and to be honest, fully utilizing what I am good at. So it's just not one. I mean, we've been here for 10 years. There's been at least 100 times in these 10 years, minimum 100 times, where I just woke up in the middle of the night and I just wanted to go back to America, not do this at all. The one thing that keeps me going is what actually happens to these game changers and what they tell us they got from us. So when you have someone like an Anand Gandhi, who wins the National Award for movies, makes a movie like Ship of Theseus, and everybody says this is one of the best filmmakers. Or Shiloh Shiv Suleiman, who becomes an amazing, in front of our eyes, she has grown to be one of the most influential artists. Or a Manvendra Singh, who's building a 500-acre city outside Jaipur in the most sustainable, artistically beautiful way. And when you have Arunachalam Muruganathan, his talk goes viral, and women get livelihood to make low-cost sanitary napkins. You see an Arunima Sinha, the first female amputee to climb Mount Everest. Her talk go viral, and she gets a Padma Shri. And you have someone like Aisha Chowdhury, who we really discovered her and put her talk, and she became the most amazing ambassador of positive thought before she passed away. When you look at these results of the work you do through others, people may not even know Inc. has done anything, but we know that our work has made these things happen. It gives me hope. And again, as I said, every time I'm ready to give up, somebody comes forward and says, retains my faith in humanity. So while, like every entrepreneur, I still think like, man, I wish somebody comes and says, Lakshmi, here is $10 million. Let's build the world's best. It's like an incubator. It's like an idea incubator. I wish somebody says that and gives me the total freedom to do it and not meddle with, my face should be everywhere kind of a thing. You always, as an entrepreneur, you're always waiting for something to happen. But I'm somebody who believes that you have to get up in the morning and take that step. It's tough. There are so many days. I mean, especially since this COVID, it has turned things upside down for us. Everything we do is events, physical events, and they all went away. So we had to reinvent ourselves. I had to reinvent myself. And we had to take very tough calls. Like we gave up our office. We moved out of our office because we just said, I don't ever see us going back there. And I am just reinventing myself at a pace that I didn't even know I was capable of. It's same thing with the company. So it's a never-ending journey. It's never ever you reach there. You should always know what is the positive thought that you're going to bring in whenever you feel depressed. What is going to move you forward? And I call it my own IPO, which is, initial people offering. So it's sort of, you have to always know what was your people offering. What did you contribute? In what way did you contribute? Your work contribute. So that IPO, every day it's a different one that keeps you going each day. So I have plenty of those moments where I feel completely alone and scared and not know whether we are going to exist another year or not, let alone another year, another month or not. So it's always, no matter what you do, it's always, a journey, because you want to do more. You want to make more of a difference. The minute we have enough money, we give grants to a lot of people. So their journeys are successful. And then we start again with, okay, how do we support ourselves now? So it's a continuous journey.
Right. I mean, it is a never-ending and continuous journey, as you said. And every young entrepreneur who is listening in, please, I hope that you have paid attention to important points that ma'am has made, because those are really the essence of how to build a company and also how to build yourself as an entrepreneur. And about the resilience part, ma'am, I can totally relate, because I'm a quiz master by profession. So my job was to also go to different places and conduct, quiz contests and game shows, which brings people together and through curiosity and sort of, then make it into a learning environment. But that is not happening as much these days. So we also had to move online and reinvent ourselves and come up with new ideas and all. And I guess that is part and parcel of, what we do as entrepreneurs every day. And any investors who is listening in, if you have $10 million,
I'll take $1 million. Forget 10 million.
And help her, accelerate the journeys of game changers that she's already doing. And if you have more money, then please also come to me as well. So
Exactly.
uh,
Yeah.
so on that note, ma'am, now that our audience know a little bit, actually a lot about you now, about how you
Yeah.
built things and how you did, let me take this conversation slightly towards the focus goal of today, that is goal 5, or SDG 5, which is on gender equality. Now, uh, your article on the good girl syndrome
Yeah.
that I was reading was certainly very, very insightful and inspiring. And in that article, you mentioned that what is assertive in a man is argumentative for a woman. What is
Yeah.
strong in a man is troublesome for women. And the list goes on and on. This, I believe,
Right.
plays a major role in how every single individual in the Indian society is raised. The tough truth is that even after extensive cultural advancement and feminist awareness, young girls and boys are still subjected to these stereotypes.
Yes.
How do you think we can combat that? And what is the motivating factor that is going to push people to think about gender equality in its truest essence, instead of letting it remain something that only a certain few of us are able to touch?
Yeah. And, first of all, I believe gender equality is for all genders. It's not just that we need to work with women and men have it all, or, you could be gender fluid, whatever it is. Let's assume the one end of the spectrum, which is the privileged male, right? Where everything you say goes, kind of a thing. Even that, I think, is very burdensome, because men are not supposed to cry. You are supposed to be this alpha male. You have to protect everyone, and you have to somehow take care of everyone. It's sort of like the Milson Boone, tall, dark, handsome, strong man who rescues damsel in distress. That's a very, very debilitating role to play as well, to never be expressive, to not be emotive, to be this protector all the time, to not be able to say I've had it, or to lose it, or whatever, is also a very difficult position. So I think, my contention is that somehow over the centuries, and I don't know where it came from, because if you read our scriptures, you read the Mahabharatas or Ramayanas of the world, it's not really about being perfect. Nobody is perfect in those places. Rama made his mistakes, Krishna made his mistakes, Bhima made his mistakes, everybody you can think of made mistakes, but somehow over the last few centuries, we created this uh, position of being a perfect someone, the perfect man, the perfect woman, do everything right. So what I say in this good girl thing, and it's definitely more on the women and the gender fluid than on men, for sure, is that as a woman, I can only talk about my experience and what I see around me. So I can't say this is this is proven, it's a research, etc. But every place I have seen, we are all taught, be a good girl. What does being a good girl mean is always toe the line, don't ask questions, don't be troublesome, just blend in, just listen to what others say, whatever the man wants, take care of it. And the next level of thing that we train, especially our girls, is if there has to be a sacrifice made, you make the sacrifice, because you are the more nurturing one. And if you're a little outgoing, etc., you better tone it down, because no one will go out with you if you're like this. You're way too independent. I mean, I've been single for a long time, and I've been through all these things. I've had people tell me that you don't seem to need me, and I'm for sure none of us needs anybody else. It's you want each other, and so I've had people tell me I'm too aggressive. I've had people tell me that you're friendly with everyone. So, in what way am I special? Or I've heard all kinds of things. I mean, when I was younger, in my school, in my college, my teachers, everybody used to tell me, you argue too much, you are such a good student, etc. If only you argue less, it's better. But luckily, I had a family, I had a father who told me, don't listen to anybody. Either you be a good girl, listen to everybody, or be yourself, and very few people will like you. You're not going to be the good girl. Somebody else will criticize you. You have to be okay with it. So I would love for everyone, not just women, men, women, children, everybody to be growing up not to please others. And at the same time, not be so selfish that you're not thinking of others. I think we have to teach our children how to balance the two things, how to pursue what you want, and at the same time, not at the cost of causing pain to everybody around you. Because sometimes when you say, I'm going to do whatever I want, you could leave a lot of people dying along the way also. But it's a fine balance. I still don't know the right answer. There are times when I decide to do something, it upsets a lot of people. I still have not balanced that. But then I keep doing what I want to do with some kind of a balance. So I feel that if we can teach ourselves, first of all, as adults, if we can teach ourselves that, am I being honest in this reaction, in this action? Am I doing this to please somebody, or am I doing this because I want to do this? And in doing so, if I upset some people, is that okay? Am I causing harm to anyone? Can we have these conversations with ourselves and accept that nobody is perfect, that we are not perfect? And I truly believe that if we can accept that we are imperfect, and if we can, in fact, we had an Inc. fellow. She had a company. It says imperfect, and then she puts an apostrophe after I. So imperfect becomes I am perfect. So I think in our imperfection is our perfection. And if we understand that and truly live with having to answer yourself with your own integrity and not worry about what others think. And to the extent we are elders, we support people who are different, who are pursuing a different path to the extent possible. I think that we would come a long way. And that's what brings gender equality. Gender differentiation comes because we have decided men do this, women do this. And 99% of the time, when you get married, it's a woman who stays home. 99% of the time, when you have children, it's a woman who stays home. And that may be the right thing, but it's assumed automatically. And worse, if it's the other way around, people will say, what's wrong with this guy? And I have a lot of respect for people who do that. My friend Ravi Vedanayagam, he lives in Portland, Oregon, and he and his wife were in very, very good jobs. And when his daughter was about 7 or 8, I think, he just said, I really want to spend more time with her. And he quit his job. I mean, he had a very senior position in a tech company. He quit the job. He stayed home. He said he loved taking his daughter to school, bringing her from there and working with her. And the time she was at school, he would do online trading or, things like that. I think pretty much till she was in high school or later, he did that. And he said, hey, I love it. I go there, I hang out with all the moms. They all love me. We are all become really, really good friends. And what's not to like about this? But he had that confidence in himself. And I'm sure, he said initially the moms found it very awkward, this guy hanging out. Pretty soon he became like the big brother to everybody, like, oh, let me help you fix this, fix that, or, whatever. And he just said that it took a while for people to accept him, but he really enjoyed that. How many times do we accept others being different? And that's really for us, even our purpose at Inc. is that when you find people who think very differently, who are doing amazing things, give them a community that says, I get you. I am here for you. And that's all it takes, is to say, I get you. I'm here for you. And I think we need to support people who think differently, who are out of the box thinkers. Otherwise, we can never be our best versions of ourselves. We can never be innovative if we are not willing to take those chances. So for true gender equality, there has to be equality of thought, that we all are equal and that we don't need to please anybody else. We need to please ourselves and those who are around us, and those who are in our immediate vicinity, can we take care of them? So that's really what I believe. Gender equality is as much about men as it is about women. In fact, if anything, we've done a disservice to both of them by saying one is stronger than the other. You've put undue pressure on the men and undue pressure on the women. So we have done disservice to everyone with stereotypes. So I think we need to work from ground up with our children to first teach them to understand what they are good at. I mean, I really love the new education things that are evolving, where they say, first let's find out what the child is good at, instead of dumping all these subjects on their head and saying everybody needs to learn all these things. So these changes are happening, but I think a lot more has to happen for our children to feel that we are all equal, and let me find out what I'm good at. I mean, finding yourself, if we can teach our kids, that's the best service we can do.
Yeah, and I think with all the game changes that you have brought in together, we hope we are able to sort of achieve that as soon as possible. And I think
Yeah.
the story that you told me about Ravi and what he has done, when I become a father, probably I will use that story as an anchor for myself as well to take.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
one of our speakers that we had, Mr. Naveen Jain, he said that it is equally important to create a better world and better children. So
Right.
that's the only thing that we can do, is we can probably get more involved and create a sort of equitable and you said equality of thought in our education system, so that we built in from that young age, so that they can grow up to become the champions of equality in that sense.
Sorry,
Well,
I want to say one more thing, so if you
yes,
don't mind,
please.
is that we need to be open to learning from our children also, because my education is way too old, and for the world today, what the children are facing, I am not familiar with it. In the plus and the minus, there is so many more opportunities available for them than they ever for me. So why should they follow the same route as me? So we need to learn to listen to our children also. I must say, this lockdown for the last, since March end, we've had the lockdown, and in India pretty much for 3 months we did not go anywhere. March, actually, 5 months we didn't go anywhere. So that's the time I got to spend time with my 16-year-old son, really, like, all of us spending time together talking. And he's a huge soccer, what Americans would say soccer, but actually most of the world says football fan. And he plays football. And to him, he doesn't understand why he needs to go to regular school. He says, I just want to play football all day long. Why can't I do it? And we were trying to explain to him, because we still come from a very middle class values, right? So we were like, yeah, you do this, and then you get into a college where you can play college football, and then we'll see if you make it a career. If not, you can always do something management or something like that, sports medicine or something, But he was like, he was in 10th grade, he just finished 10th grade. He's like, but I don't want to wait, I want to do football now. And he had to educate us on why he needs to do it now. So then we did the research together. He did a lot of the research and he told us and he explained to us what he wants to do. Then we went into a whole world of football academies and stuff like that. And we found a school in England for him. So in fact, I'm in UK right now because I came to admit him in the school on September 1st. So this was, in the lockdown period, a big education for me, that there is an alternate life available for him. He may make it, he may not make it. We don't know. I mean, when I went to do my MBA at Bajaj, did I know that I would get a great job? I didn't. So nothing is guaranteed. But at least if you give the right exposure, to the extent it's uncomfortable for you. I mean, to me, it turns my stomach to think that he may not go to the you know, a great college to do a great undergrad course, or that he may not have a degree the way I want him to have a degree. He may not have it. If he pursues this professionally, it gets into some league and wants to play, it's a completely different life. And I don't know that world. I mean, compared to most people, I'm exposed to a lot, and still I don't know that world. But my husband and I said, fine, we'll take this risk. We'll do this because he educated us on what are all the options available for him. He says, Mom, even if I play for a B league in Europe, this is how much money I will make. And when I retire at 35 or whatever, I can go be a sports journalist, or I can be this, I can be that. So he had to educate us on his life, and we had to let him do what he wants to do. So we need to, the elders who have the capacity to make a change must listen to the children. Let them educate us, because their world is very different than the world we grew up in. And we have to honor that. We have to listen to that.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally relate to that story because my mother always knew that I'm serious about asking questions, but she never thought that I would, grow up to use that as my profession and become, quizmaster. My father still keeps asking me that people pay you to do that. Are you serious? I'm like, yes, there are a lot of things have changed, and thank you for sharing the story. I mean, I closely relate to it as well. On that note, let me move into question which I had is so of course you mentioned the education system and the changes in the education system and everything, and to solve SDG 5, I think one of the key ingredients is education, and through the digital equalizer program that you created, it has brought education to over 100,000 children. So what I wanted to know from you is like what impact does this program have on education and girls in particular, and how, according to you, can a young girl in countries such as India or Bangladesh or Pakistan or all these other countries overcome the hurdles that come along with female education?
Technology is truly the greatest equalizer. When people say that having access to internet is a fundamental right, I really believe in it. Technology in itself is of no use, but technology as a tool can make a lot of difference. So when we did digital equalizer, in 2000, we are talking 20 years ago, it started with schools online, which my friend Kamran Ilahian has started, and then we made it part of American India Foundation and Digital Equalizer. Now think about it, 20 years ago, we said that even the poorest of the poor should have access to internet in schools. All the children should have access to internet. And we said real education is not just learning what's in textbook, it's having access to knowledge. So in those days, when government used to give computers, etc., but the computers were put in a computer lab, and they only taught them C++, Fortran, and I don't know, I can't even remember, COBOL and stuff like that 20 years ago. We said our only rule is we give computers, we give internet connection, no teaching computer programming here. This has to be taught for children to have access to learning, which means every class, like a math class and an English class and a Kannada class, everything should be taught in the lab at least once a week. That means that you have to research things, you have to create presentations, you have to use the technology to communicate a thought. So we said that's the bottom line, is that the children should have access to knowledge. And my friend Kamran had a great analogy. He would say that if you teach somebody to be a car mechanic, you're teaching them it's like you teach programming, right? So their idea is to how to fix the machine. But 90% of the people who drive cars have no idea how the technology works. I have no idea what's under the hood, what's in, what circuit it's running on. I just sit there and drive the car, but I'm using it to get me from point A to point B. In the same way, the purpose of technology is to make you progress. everyone doesn't need to be a technical person. Everyone doesn't need to know how to program, etc. Of course, we need enough people to do it, and the people who do it will always command a premium because that's important. But for 90% of the people who may not have the aptitude for it, we don't need to force them into it. You just need to know how to use the machine. So 20 years ago, that was the thought that was important. And we went to poor schools, underprivileged schools, and put computers in really poor schools, connected them to the internet. I mean, in those days, it was a big deal to bring a DSL line into a poor school in a mediocre neighborhood and access the internet and all that. That was huge 20 years ago. And that's what we did. What's huge today is not just that. I mean, most of the people have the smartphones, most people have the connection. It's our priority to make sure everywhere everyone has connection to internet from their phones. Make smartphones so cheap that people can have them. And now education is everywhere. I mean, even the pivot we are making at Inc. is about how do we make learning a lifestyle. It's not that you learn to get a degree or get a job. Learning is a lifestyle. I mean, no matter how many degrees you have to learn about something about blockchain, something about programming, something about sensors and all these kinds of things if you want to move forward in whatever you do. You could be a yoga instructor, you could be a swimming coach, or you could be a NASA scientist. You need some basic ingredients, and the basic ingredients are technology. What's the latest in technology that you need to use? So we just said, you need to learn. And the new thing is, in COVID, you have to learn online. It's not going to be in person. I'm not going to be able to do in-person workshop for 50 people or whatever. So we have to figure out how to use VR and things like that to create immersive experiences, and how to teach and learn online. I mean, again, online is, when you have a knife, you can cut vegetables, you can kill somebody, you can do anything. You have access to internet, you can spend 24 hours a day watching rubbish on it, or you can use the power you have to learn. And learning is not just about, I mean, today, if you see a lot of the courses, it's just coursework in video form put out there. There isn't any personalization done or for you to learn. I mean, I was very impressed. I was looking at Imbibe. I'm working closely with them, actually. Aditi Avasti is an amazing, dynamic woman who's a founder. And if you look at their software, etc., it's personalized to my learning. If I don't know some concept, the machine can tell, and it gives me exercises in that concept to get better. So how do we use AI to personalize learning for people is important. And what we are doing at Inc. is we are saying, no matter how great leader you are, when you're in the workplace, you have to constantly learn. You have to constantly see what are the new technologies that are coming, what's happening, and all that stuff. So we're designing all kinds of courses on mindfulness, storytelling. I mean, we stick to very few things. And we are offering them online, 2-hour courses, 8-hour courses. And like that, a lot of people are doing, and we all need to be innovative in how to make learning a lifestyle. It's not for degree or a job anymore. For us to be useful citizens, we need to learn. So from the time you're kids, can you make learning a lifestyle? Can you make it fun for kids to learn? And so that sort of I really believe that's what every company, everybody need to think about. How do I make whatever I'm doing a lifestyle for somebody, not a transaction? A degree is a transaction, a job is a transaction. And today we are way beyond transactions. We really need to think about how do we make a difference in their life, create certain peace in their life, happiness in their life, excitement to learn. I mean, you talk about what you're doing, curiosity as a commodity, right? I mean, why not? Why aren't we curious as a habit? We should be always curious. So,
Oh, yeah, I mean,
that's what I believe.
could totally feel it when you were saying that we need to build this as a lifestyle. And of course, I know Shyamal for some time, who has built some.
Yes, yeah. So he's the one who's offering the courses with us,
Yeah,
and
of course, and he's
amazing.
brilliant, and his mind works in mysterious ways. But
Yeah,
I think one of the things that I closely relate to is the mission that I have in life, and also through Gyan Space, what we are trying to do is build this habit of, or culture of curiosity, among these young
correct.
kids, and also in companies as well, because curiosity
Absolutely.
leads to innovation and creativity, right? So as
Mhm.
like if we bring lateral thinking and ask them and help them to connect dots and find answers, the joy of finding out, as you put it, will
Yeah,
also encourage them to learn, and then learning may
right.
lead to better things. So I think
Correct.
that is definitely foremost. And on that note, one thing that comes to my mind, which you have said multiple times before, I noticed, is that we need to shift from the industrial economy to creative economy.
Correct.
So I would love to know
Yeah.
more about that framework that you thought about. And as you
Right.
said, that leaders of today are very different from leaders of yesterday. And
Right.
we have to equip them with the right tool, which to some extent you are trying to do. What
Correct.
could be your blueprint or sort of some recommendations for these leaders who want to create an equitable future?
Correct. So, industrial economy is something we lived by for the last 200 years. It started with the Ford cars, etc. And I worked in the microprocessor industry. I've seen it up close and personal. It's attention to detail, copy exactly, and you follow order. You cannot veer from the order. It has to be just so. And you did a degree, you specialized in it, and that was good for the next 30, 40 years of your life. Or even though I reinvented myself many times, it's been pretty much in the same area of work. I worked in technology, I worked in storytelling. I mean, I can say two, three things. But the next generation is going to be doing at least 10 to 15 things in their life that are completely different from each other. They could be, a chef and then become a writer and then become a technology specialist and then become a financial controller and then become something and then become something. So they may have 10 to 15 completely different jobs. So we all have to constantly learn, because I mean, genetics was not even a field 30, 40 years ago, the level to which it is. So if I want to do something in genetics, I can do it today. I can learn and I can become something, because everybody is at the same pace learning with me. Similarly, there are going to be many fields evolving that everybody will be learning at the same time. So, an average young person, somebody who's maybe in their teens today, will have at least 10 to 15 jobs in their lifetime, in their 40, 50 years of life, working life, that are completely different from the job before. They are going to be doing that. So, it's a very, very different world. Now, to sustain in that world, it's not just about discipline, following order, etc. You should be able to walk into a completely new scenario, figure out the pieces, figure out who are the important people to talk to them, collect information, synthesize it, and come out with solutions. It's going to be very, very difficult to do so with a very traditional background that, say, my generation has had. So we are not very comfortable veering away from what we know. But to do this, you should be able to rip something apart and put it back together. You should be curious. You should be, uh, you should have that learning mindset. And also, you should have a very calm mindset. It's okay, things fall apart. Let's see how we can fix it together. Because the true success comes from learning how to deal with failures. So, how do we teach ourselves how to deal with failures? Because in the old world, in the industrial economy world, you perfected something. In Intel, we built $1 billion fabrication lab. The initial investment was $1 billion. That means you cannot afford to go wrong anywhere. If one machine is off by 1 micro inch or something like that, it's game over, and so that's what it was. And now 2 kids in a garage can type something up on a phone that they have, or a little laptop that they have, and create a $1 billion company. So the tools that are available today, and also think about it, in those days you had to own the server space, you had to build rooms and rooms of servers, you needed all these things to start a portal. And now everything is on the cloud. I can purchase what I need when I need, and not have to have all that upfront investment. So I think that the tools that are available today are very, very different. The needs that are there are very, very different. And the mindset is very, very different. The current generation is born, they're digital natives, they're born in a world of abundance. They think very differently. I am born in a world of shortage, so I'm always trying to play safe. Whereas somebody who comes from an abundant mindset says, let's try it. What's the worst that can happen? We'll fail, we'll start all over again. Not a big deal. That is a amazing mindset. Now, I do want to say that mindset needs the adult supervision of balance, because balance is the key thing that sustains the world. We need that balance, but you really don't need to be encumbered by the things that held you back. And in fact, your knowledge is your handicap. If you don't know something, the way you invent is very different than you thinking you know something. So this requires a very different mindset. And that's why, like, for this leaders, I always say my focus is on creating a more balanced leadership. In the industrial economy, we had a very patriarchal leadership. It's not men or women, it's a very patriarchal leadership. The CEO figures everything out and tells, and it flows down, and there is one person who knows everything, and knowledge is held very closely, etc. But in a matriarchal system, it's the whole family that matters. Somebody is taking care of many, many different things. There's multitasking, and there is making sure that if there are 10 kids, there are 10 preferences, how all this feeds into the system. So the real answer is we need to have both depending on the situation. So my term for that is, I always say we need to have kind of an Ardhanarishwara style of management, because in the Indian mythology, Shiva is Ardhanarishwara. He's half man, half woman. And so I think for a true management to be successful, while the matriarchal leadership style has to learn to be decisive and be able to give orders where necessary, the patriarchal leadership style has to learn how to step back and let people make their mistakes and learn from it, and think of the whole picture, not just of your company and you. You need to think of the whole community, the whole family. You need to have a bigger picture. So the true answer is somebody becoming good at both, the Ardhanarishwara kind of a management style. And so all my personal work, Inc.'s work, now is in developing leaders who have both, and it just so happens, stereotypically, more women have more matriarchal style and more men have more patriarchal style, but it doesn't have to be. It's not a rule, but each has to learn more to be like the other and know when to use what. It's just like raising children. There are times you have to be decisive and say no is a no. You cannot do this. But there are times you have to say, okay, you tell me why you should do it, and give them that leeway. And the new leadership is all about learning this. And it doesn't matter if you're 40 or 50 or 60. We are all going to live longer. So we have to learn this, of how to be this way. And my passion is, I think corporations are the new economies. I mean, there are many companies larger than many countries, and they're very cohesive. They're all together. If we can influence the corporations to think differently, to adopt more of this, Ardhanarishwara style of management, to learn more of matriarchal side, etc., we can make a huge difference in this world.
Well, all the managers who are here today, there is a new management principle that you have, Ardhanarishwara management principle. And as you said, all the leaders of today, create a mindset of abundance coupled with lifestyle, which is learning focused. That is what is going to probably solve the biggest issues that we are facing in today's world. And my last question to you would be, time and again, you have mentioned Gloria Steinem as is the feminist who most appealed to you.
Yes.
So if you are addressing to the women of the world or women of India, what are the 3 things that you learned from her that you would like to pass on to them?
Yeah. I must say that when I was younger, I still remember when I was in IIT Mumbai, is the first time I read about Gloria Steinem. And I was really taken in by her because, till then for me, feminism was a very, robust, rough thing. You have to be like this, not like that. And when I first saw Gloria Steinem, she's very delicate, very beautiful, and incredibly strong. So it's not. She breaks the stereotypes in more ways than one. And she worked as a Playboy bunny to write an article, and I just thought that was amazing for somebody to be able to do that. And I mean, I've had a lot of times you admire people, but that's about it. But I had the opportunity to actually interview her. So I'll tell you, there are 3 things that she represents that really appeal to me. Actually, it so happens, Julie Taymor, who's another woman I admire a lot. She's the director of Lion King, etc. And I interviewed her as well. She was at Inc. In India. She's done a movie called The Two Glorias. It's about Gloria Steinem. That's going to be releasing end of September. So I think everybody should watch it and know about Gloria Steinem and about the incredible craft of Julie Taymor. I mean, it's like 2 women, my dream women coming together. So the 3 things about Gloria Steinem I really, really admire. One is, I already mentioned, is that she is very unapologetically herself. She's pretty, she's slim, she's this, she's that. She's not trying to make herself look like a man, which is what, for me, when I was younger, I wanted to look like. I cut my hair off. I wanted to look a certain way. I felt if I had long hair and dressed in a very feminine way, that people wouldn't take me seriously, etc. But she's very herself, and behind her delicate and beautiful demeanor, she's incredibly strong, does not mince words, and writes beautifully. So that ability to be yourself, because I remember I met her, she was married, and it was like a big deal in those days. Gloria Steinem getting married, like she's giving into this institution or something of that sort. And I asked her about it, and then she said, well, it was simple. He needed immigration. We got tired of traveling back and forth because he couldn't stay in US, so I married him. So it's more practical. When it's practical, just do it. You don't need to live for somebody else. Whether you get married or not, it's your business. So I love her for always being herself. Okay. And secondly, the pendulum has to swing severely to another side to make people listen to your point of view. And she's one of those people who push the pendulum to the other side. So people were like, oh my God, you are a feminist, that kind of a reaction. But I say, good for you to have that kind of reaction, because you need to wake up and understand these are real issues. I mean, what she's talking about, that women have been suppressed, that there's been a stereotype, etc. These are all conversations we're having now, but 50 years ago, people didn't have these kind of conversations. So she forced the conversation through media, through her pen, through collecting people, influencing them. So the fact that she took an issue and stuck to it, didn't care what others said, but really made a difference. I could be myself, but I may not have made a huge difference in the world. But her stance actually made a huge difference in the world. And finally, it's her quote that's my favorite quote, is that it's not just about raising your daughters like your sons, but it's raising your sons like your daughters. I mean to me, as I was raising my son, that was my mantra. Is such a beautiful quote. In 2 lines she summarizes everything about how we need to raise our children. It's just not about teaching our daughters to say you should stand up to a man. You should also teach the man and say, don't put a woman in that position, respect a woman, and so we need to teach both of them. So that perspective to have, that quote, if she did nothing but wrote only that quote, I would admire her for that. And I'm a huge fan, and I'm incredibly lucky that I've got to actually meet her and interview her. And this one quote stays with me. It's just one of those guiding quotes, guiding principles in my life.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing that. I think I'm going to print this quote out and keep it with me as well all the time as a guidance. Thank you so much. Now, as you mentioned, when two women come together, great things happen. So I think it is probably the moment for me to go to another woman from here. And I have a young voice with me today. Aarjoo is a member. He's a young professional, and she's a member of the global volunteer community that we have. And she has a couple of questions for you. So, Aarjoo, please introduce yourself and ask your questions.
Hello, ma'am. My name is Ardhanarishwara. Hello. And I recently graduated from law school, and I was all set to launch my career into the corporate world, sounding fancy. But then my drive for these social issues and actually wanting to impact change over here has led me here. So I have recently joined Alexis Group as an intern because I saw that they were trying to work towards achieving the SDGs. So I thought, well, what better a way to actually positively be able to contribute to something like that.
Correct.
So it's been a pleasure listening to your opinion and, just enlightening myself from all of this. And I have 2 questions for you today. So my first question for you is the following. So I feel that achieving gender equality is still a huge challenge in today's world as we know it.
Yeah.
So, as a young woman who is trying to achieve her life and professional goals at the same time by combating all these societal norms and stereotypes, like you previously mentioned, that are imposed on women, irrespective of the n number of feminist movements or awareness that we have been putting in place, and they continue to remain in place. But I still feel that this feminist approach has become more than just an approach. It's a global revolution. It's a global movement. So feminist movements often get mistaken for women's movements or advocacy for women's rights, when in actuality, feminism is just trying to achieve gender equality, which includes breaking down stereotypes not only for women but also for men. So, how is it that we can demystify this puzzle for people? How can we explain the concept of gender equality through feminism to people on a very basic level?
Yeah. See, first, I always believe, Aarjoo, first of all, thank you and congratulations on joining the Alexis Group. It's wonderful because at the end of the day, you can make a difference many different ways. Having said that, I will say that it's important for everyone to get all kinds of experience. And if you're in a corporate, it's important to understand that as well. In a social organization, it's important to understand. So be open to everything. Okay. And actually, when I was doing my MBA in my practical training, I did for a month in Datta Samant, who's in those days in Bombay, one of the biggest trade unions. I actually, as a management graduate, I went and worked for the trade union because I felt if I'm managing, I need to understand the trade union point of view. So whatever you do, you need to understand many, many different points of view. So that's the first thing I want to suggest to you. And secondly, I think the only way change can come is each of us changing ourselves. Okay, and this is, I always point things by looking at yourself in something completely different. Like, for example, if you're asking about how women can be more successful in careers, I always ask them, what kind of a person, first of all, do you believe in marriage? Do you want to get married? If yes, what's the kind of person you want to marry? And 90 out of 100 times, I got a long list. I want the person to be very good looking, very smart, must have a lot of money, must have this much. We have like a list of 20 things, right? And even in a job, what do you want in a job? It should be something prestigious. It should be this. It should pay this much money, this, that, etc. So a lot of times what happens is that our lists are so unreasonable that we'll never get it all in one thing. And so we are always looking for the next thing. The way to really move forward in life is whatever you pick, do it so well that people say nobody can do it this well. Okay. And then move on to the next thing. Having said that, if you felt this is not me, don't try to force yourself either. That's the thing. It took me 10 years or 20 years to learn it. And I'm telling you right now, like I felt I hate accounting. I just hate that stuff. But I felt I cannot say that I must get good at it. So I was in finance. I did accounting. I did cost accounting. I did kind of things that would drive everybody nuts. But at some point, somebody said to me, he said, it's being a great manager is not about knowing the detail of everything, but knowing just enough to ask the right questions, but also hire for the things you don't want to do. Okay. So to be a great person in general, there are three things you have to think about. First of all, what are your expectations out of whatever you're taking on? Are they reasonable? And I will tell you what my dad told me. I was telling him when I was single that I want this, I want that. So my dad told me, like, okay, if you want a guy who's tall and amazingly good looking and a billionaire, and even though that's not what I said, but he was just saying all these things, don't you think he also wants a model who's a billionaire, who's graduated from Harvard or whatever? And I had such a laugh about it, but it really opened my eyes to a lot of times our expectations are so unreal. It's not about talking yourself down. It's about really being realistic about your expectations and then push it. And always push it. Always push the envelope. But whatever is given. So you, first of all, set the expectations right and say, you cannot say that I'm a lawyer, but I'm a really smart person, so give me a surgeon's job. It just won't happen, right? So A, set the expectations right, and B, whatever you take on, do it really 100%, do it extremely well. But if you're not good at it, if that's not your forte, also recognize it sooner than later. Don't push yourself against it and say, okay, I need to understand this enough to ask the right questions, but let me go try something else. So the first thing is about career. Is very, very important to set the expectations, excel, and always learn, always give the team back something that they say, wow, I got 10 times more than I thought. That's the first thing. And the second thing is personal life. And I say this in a lot of talks. Actually, recently I was talking to someone, he said that this point made a big difference for him. I said, in your life, what you become, how great you will become, or how mediocre you may be, or not make it, a big part of it is who you choose to marry. If you choose to marry. If you don't, it's perfectly fine. No problem. Because a partner who you choose to be with can make a huge difference in your journey. So be very careful. It's not a chemical reaction. It has to be as much of a logical decision. And at the same time, it's not like plus minus, list kind of a thing. There is emotion involved, but do not be guided by emotions, because that's the second thing. And the final thing is that your own sense of worth of yourself has to be always high. And I love it. There's a movie called Holiday, which is there are some movies, Love Actually, Holiday. Whenever I'm kind of bored, I watch them. They're on my laptop. I watch them all the time. So this movie called Holiday, where Kate Winslet, she's playing a character. She's in LA. She goes to dinner with a guy who's a scriptwriter, who's like a Oscar-winning scriptwriter, an old man who's living alone, and they're having dinner. And he says to her, she's telling about this guy she broke up with, blah, blah, whatever, her story. And then he looks at her and says that, in every movie, there's a heroine and there is a best friend. Why are you playing the best friend when you're really the heroine? And she says that at least in my story, I should be the heroine, right? So the point is, be the hero or heroine in your own story, because no one else is going to make you. The others will treat you the way you treat yourself. So more than what others may do, the job you may have or who you may marry or whatever, the most important thing is your sense of yourself is extremely important. And again, balance. Don't think too much of yourself, too little of yourself. Be humble, have a lot of humility, but be strong. So these are the three things I would say is your professional career, how you shape it, right expectations, and being the best you can be, and outsource what you're not good at. Don't force yourself doing things you're not good at. And who you choose to spend your time with, and be the hero or heroine of your own life. These are the things I would suggest as a young professional to you. If you keep these three things in mind, every decision can be answered in one of these three perspectives.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for that inspirational answer. It was very insightful, and I clearly resonated with it a lot, actually. Now, I'd actually like to ask you another question, which would be a three-step program or a three-step agenda for young women like me who are trying to contribute towards achieving the goal of gender equality. So, as young people who are clearly wanting to achieve this goal on a very local level, on a very basic level, because that's where we actually have to begin from. I
Correct.
understand that the whole process is very institutionalized, and unless and until there are no set mechanisms in place, we cannot achieve this goal. But I also believe that change begins at home. So,
Correct.
how is it that we can contribute? How is it that I can contribute to the achievement of this goal? What is that 3 point agenda that I should be following to do this?
Okay. So, I mean, I've never thought about it that way. So, let me do my best. I think the first thing is what you let happen around you, because a lot of times, we joke about stuff and we say that, how women are. I mean, we say a lot of these things without even thinking. Like, for example, if somebody is driving bad, you say, must be a woman driver. We say these things a lot, and it happens around us a lot. And I think we have to learn to call people on these things and say that, hey, boss, that's not nice. We let a lot of things slip by. It doesn't mean you have to become like this pain in the butt who will, dissect every thing somebody will say, and they'll say, man, she's coming, so I better go the other way, kind of stuff. But try to use a sense of humor. Try to use, appealing to people to, don't let anything slip by. Don't just say, yeah, men are like that. It's not okay. It's not okay to joke about things that are not okay. And you can just say, hey, I really didn't appreciate it. So what you and some things you have to let go. You just can't change everybody, and then don't interact with them. So number one, making a decision on what you let go or let by and what you don't. So which means you have to learn how to call on things in the most positive way. Because my generation, we had to fight for everything. So I'm used to fighting for everything. So first thing when somebody says, I declare a war, and they stop listening to me. So I had to learn over the years as to how to make my point, and at the same time make them listen to me. Okay. So it might mean somebody might have said something in a meeting that's inappropriate, but talking to them one-on-one and saying, look, you said this, that was very inappropriate and I didn't appreciate it. But saying it in that tone, not upset, not angry, not yelling, or not call them in front of everybody so they get defensive and stuff. But if they do it again, call in front of everybody. Because sometimes give them the benefit of doubt that maybe they're doing without knowing they're doing it. Sometimes people crack a joke without knowing it's offensive. So take them aside and tell them and say, I really didn't appreciate it and please don't do that again. And so learning when to call on things, when to let go by, and how to call on things in a way that you are heard. That's number one, very important on a personal day-to-day level. Everything you're listening, everything you are looking at, look at it, that point of view. The second thing is how you choose to treat others is extremely important. And these are the bias. What is your unconscious bias? I know that I have this is what I realized about 10 15 years ago when we started this. When I'm looking for great stories, if somebody had a very thick accent, or if somebody was not dressed properly, or if somebody talked a lot, I would discount them. But now I have learned, no matter what, there are some people who are like pain, they talk so much that they're very irritating. Even if that's the case, is there a story? Is there really a story there? To look for a learning, no matter what the delivery mechanism is. That could be a nice person, pompous person, doormat. It doesn't matter who they are. If there is something to learn, can you filter that learning from them? Is a very, very valuable thing. And the third thing is always aim for more. Don't be apologetic about. I'm sorry. So don't be apologetic about wanting, because I think a lot of times women apologize a lot. We shouldn't apologize and say that. But again, you don't need to be obnoxious about it either. Man, woman, it doesn't matter who. Don't apologize for what you want. Be very clear, because we are so afraid to ask. It's like Nike has just do it. My thing is always just ask. Doesn't matter what it is. 90 out of 100 times you may get a no, but you know what? That's the answer anyway. But the 10 times the answer is yes, it's fantastic. I mean, I've been going to TED since 1993. Okay. I've always wanted to do something other than I just didn't have the guts to walk up to someone and say, can I do this? And when I did it, it happened immediately. But of course, as I said, there was a history and all that stuff. But the point is, when you ask for things, you never know what you might get. But if you don't ask it, you're for sure not going to get it. So these are the things I would say is you need to, if you can imbibe these things as a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. Again, as I said, gender equality is about all of us being equal. As a woman, you have to work harder to learn to speak up and say, hey, I didn't appreciate it, and all those kinds of things. There will be times people say, she's a pain, man, always calling out on this. But you know what? It's okay. You have to learn when to say, I don't care what they say about me. Because the people who care about you will care about you regardless. So are you willing to be in a position where a lot of people may not say nice things about you? Are you okay with it? Truly, honestly. That's the biggest question you need to answer.
Wow, this has been a roller coaster of a conversation. We have had from relationship advice to parenting advice to starting up advice for entrepreneurs and everything else in between, ma'am. I cannot thank you enough. This is definitely one of the most life-changing and inspiring conversations that I have had myself with someone. So thank you deeply, deeply. Thank you so much. If I have to sum up for everyone who is listening in, I couldn't possibly do it. So all of you have to, all of you have joined in. I hope you have paid attention, but I'll try my best as the host. We must accelerate the journeys of game changers and inspire people to take risk, open up their imagination, and accept others, learn to accept others as different. We must bring equality of thought and build learning as a lifestyle with a habit or mindset of abundance. But more importantly, be the hero and heroine of your own story.
Yes, yeah. I just want to add one last thing which I didn't say. The only thing I caution in this world of abundance is to make sure the abundance is for everyone. Because if each of us act as though it's abundant for us without thinking about the others, it's not good. So what worries me sometimes in the abundant world is that they'll say, use as much water as you want. There's always seawater that we can, desalinate. So that's the way to think about it. But that's not true. I think we should still, conserve. We should still behave responsibly and make sure it's a world of abundance for everyone. Otherwise, we'll miss the point. But you are amazing in your summary. I think you can cut out my entire hour-plus conversation and just listen to your summary. So that was great.
Thank you, ma'am. And since I'm a quizmaster, I never run out of questions. So I have one very last, I promise you that this is the last one that I'll ask you is, if you have to sum up your vision for a better world in one sentence, what would that be?
It's to, let's see, let me think one sentence. Now you stumped me a little bit. I think if I have to sum up, I would say always have a long-term vision and a short-term action plan.
Well, there you have it. Long-term vision and short-term action plan. All of you who are listening in and joining in, once again, thank you so much for joining. And remember, for a world where no one is left behind, it has never been clearer that all of us have a role to play in order to bring about change. Whoever you are, no matter where you come from, every one of us can make a difference. Every action truly counts. Get involved, attend the SDG Action Conclave 2020, participate in the SDG quiz, help raise awareness about the goals, and connect with the global community of passionate volunteers. This Global Goals Week, let us all come together to spread the knowledge about people, planet, and our sustainable development goals. Thank you all for joining us. Follow us on Instagram at Youth Forum India for all the updates. And don't forget to join our next session. Ma'am, thank you so much once again for joining us and giving us your valuable time. And till we meet again, it's a goodbye from Youth Forum and Gyanspace.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to both of you for having a great conversation.